Sometime, but when we're starting, before the podcast starts, I want you to do like a mic check. Sibilance.
Check one, check two.
Check one, check two. We read you loud and clear. Welcome to Hacking Business Technology. We are here. It's a gorgeous time here. It's gorgeous in Minnesota. It's gorgeous in Florida.
It is gorgeous.
I like the color of your shirt. There's a very bright shirt.
It is. This is my my Beyond 20 conference shirt.
Swag?
Gave me for speaking. Yeah.
Last year's? That's last year's then.
No, it's this year's. This is their first conference, I think.
But it hasn't happened yet.
No, it's in a week, May 1st and 2nd.
So they mailed you a T-shirt.
They did mail me a T-shirt.
Huh.
They also promised to mail me a coffee mug, and they didn't.
Is it the kind of conference where you would wear a T-shirt?
No. I think it was they sent all the speakers a T-shirt and said, take a picture of you within it. And tweet it and social media, cool. Offline marketing. It's become one of my default workout shirts. It's actually very, very breathable. Beyond 20 is.
How long? How early did they send it? How many weeks have you been wearing it?
It's been at least 2 weeks.
Have people asked you about it?
Yeah, a couple people mentioned it. Well, I did put it on and then I tweeted it. No.
See, that's how I think of it as swag. Like, it'd be awesome to give it to speakers, like say 3 months in advance, and it not be a T-shirt, so they would actually wear it. And then people would ask you, like, put something on there that's really curious or like sparks a conversation. Then they'd ask you, and you'd say, okay, I'm doing this presentation, and it draws people to the conference, right?
Right. Like, I disrupt IT, and what's that shirt about? Oh, well, I'm a fusion speaker. Hint, ITSMF.
Hint, ITSMF. But the problem is, of course, with all events is how much do you prepare? Because a lot of times, like, that's what it comes down to is crunch time. Who's going to present? And finding the people that are going to present is really tough. And then, so I don't know, it's sort of like the chicken or the egg.
Right. Yeah, it's that 4-letter word, planning.
Oh, man.
This planning isn't 4 letters, but
that is a podcast in and of itself. And you and I don't know. There's something about the marketing industry and planning. You can see how successful good planning is. So directly in marketing. You see it in development and software development too. But I feel like developers get caught with their pants down less often than marketers. Yes. Maybe not with their pants down, with their calendar empty.
I think it's the left brain, right brain thing, right? You've got marketers who can be very creative and artistic but are they the best systems thinker? You know, do they fully appreciate cause and effect? You know?
This is awesome. This is all gold. The problem is that I'm writing a paper right now about how attention attention issues in the technical industry are difficult to manage. Yeah. Okay, now it's getting too loud. Like the wind has picked up. Is it hurricane season? I don't think yet.
I should be kite surfing, not podcasting.
That's right. Yeah, I've seen some of the kite surfing pics, but you always post pictures after you have kite surfed. Like you're on the beach. You need to get okay, so here's the planning we would do for Hacking Business Technology marketing. Right? I want videos of Matt Hooper kite surfing as a preview for some episode.
I tell you one thing is extreme sports, which kite surfing is an extreme sport, is
yes.
It is a education and a re-education and risk planning and risk management. It's funny because I go out there and I've taken numerous lessons and I've taken many falls. I found myself a 1/4 mile offshore having to swim upwind with this huge kite that I paid $1,400 for that I didn't want to lose against the tide for an exhausting 45 minutes. You find yourself in these precarious situations that teach you very valuable lessons. And yet when you're on the beach blowing this up, someone will come up to me and say, hey, how much does that cost? I'm thinking about buying one.
Yes.
And my immediate reaction is no. This is not something you just want to buy and try, right? There are levels of risk that you do not want to take. And and I just, I was going back and forth with someone who saw me speak at Fusion today. She had asked me, who owns the change ticket in an agile development process? And I thought about this. I said, this is a really good question, because I think this really, people do struggle like this. So I wrote back to her. I said, here's a couple of fundamental things. First off, who raised the change request? Well, that came from an enhancement request, which should be logged as an incident, or a sustainability issue, which should be logged as an incident. Purists and IT will say, no, that's not an incident, but it is an incident because it's against your technology. That's where you raise the change request. But then it was interesting, because then we started getting into this dialogue. Okay, then who facilitates all the release documentation, rollback planning, change control, user acceptance? It's like, we want to move fast, but we've somehow introduced all these risk prevention things that are really good, right? So running fast.
In some cases, yes.
Yeah, in some cases, used in the appropriate way, governed in the appropriate way.
I think as like a stack person, right away, I think about how I can design around those things so I don't have to do them anymore.
Well, I will post my email response in the show notes. I literally mapped out an architecture in data flow of how the data goes from the incident to the change ticket, and that opens up your epic, and then your sprint and your backlog notes, and then your test results should be rolled back into your change ticket. Your change statuses should move along the life cycle so that the release dates can be forwarded into your calendar against the CIs that are being impacted by the change. So I mapped out this whole little architecture in an email.
Right.
But I saw, and then she immediately wrote back and she goes, I love the idea of this level of automation, but we are nowhere near that. So who changes the change? Who closes the change request? And I said, wow, I said, yeah, it is. I don't know. And I gave a presentation at Sweden about going from a caterpillar to a butterfly and this transformational effect that we have to have. And I think it's going to be something very interesting in our practice here, that we are just going to have to transform. We can't necessarily morph slowly. I think we need to go into almost a cocoon state and come out a butterfly.
The ones who are morphing too slowly are going to be picked up by birds.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. They will become food. They will be done for. Right?
I mean, outsourced bird will come and picketh ye up.
Precisely. It'll either become too expensive to manage it that way, or you won't be able to change fast enough to be relevant still.
Yeah.
That's a blazing assumption and forward thinking, and of course there are decades of evolution that still need to occur. However, that question in and of itself is telling of the kind of culture you're in too. Because when someone says who owns the change ticket, right away I say the team.
Sure, right.
Right, because a good team would say, all of us own this, all of us want this to happen, and here's why. And you would be like clamoring to get it done if it's something that isn't already fault resistant and risk resistant. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'm almost done with The Lean Enterprise by Jez Humble, and I thought about writing a book for a little while, and then I've been heads deep in this book, and he's so stinking smart. I now feel woefully inadequate to finish my book, but I digress. So he talks about, and he leverages the Toyota methodology and lean manufacturing a lot. Eric Ries's Lean Startup, things we've been talking about for a long time. But you just hit it. It's that cultural view of it. Even if you have an end-on cord which halts all production, even if you have that one person who says, "Wait, our architecture is wrong," if the culture doesn't buy into it, you get that reaction of like, "Well, you're an idiot," And I don't, it's funny. I kind of look at it and view as like this DevOps world and Lean. They've kind of just said, "Hey, listen, you really actually can't guard against stupidity. Let's just embrace it. People are going to do stupid things. Let's just accept the fact that they're going to do stupid things."
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Whereas in ITSM, it's always like, how do we prevent stupid things from happening? And it's like this bank recently that just got hacked for about $950 million. They're estimating. They didn't have firewalls in place, and not that firewalls are going to stop you.
Of course
100%
not.
of the time, but that's basic blocking and tackling, right? It's layers of defense, and it's kind of like your car gets stolen, but you left the keys in the ignition running and the door's unlocked. So it's just, to me, it's
950 million US or 950 million Indian
rubies, whatever they're using.
rupees.
Rubies. No, I think it was 950 million US.
I think you're right too.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. No firewall. I have one in my house. It's like that's sort of shocking. That is shocking.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
see, people, this is why regulations need to exist.
I love the quote at the end of the blog on the Next Web. It ends in, just one more reason to stay in school, kids.
That's got to be from something, though, right?
And you know how they found it? Because one of the hackers misspelled some data into a form, and that triggered an alarm. So they were actually doing some monitoring, but there was really no resilience put in place. It was only because of some sloppy hacking. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of crazy, right? I mean, you can't prevent stupidity. I think you have to design and plan for it. And I think that's a little bit of what it's like, we're going to fail, we're going to test. One of the use cases in Jez's book was about this retail company that wanted to go internationally and expand internationally. And it was going to take a huge effort to recode their mainframe to handle international currency. So they built this little scraper. It was chewing gum and paper clips. It was absolutely a just slap-on solution. But it worked, and it worked enough for them to go and test the market. But it was 2008. It wasn't a good time to be expanding internationally. So they ended up retracting and not going forward with it. So at the end of the day, even though they vetted that they could do it and they tested and did pass the test, they didn't overinvest in their technology for a business failure.
That's just beautiful. It's serious. That is so beautiful to just say, like, it is a luxury to understand the scope and spend of your explorations. And I think, like, if you want to get into leadership, this is what it's about. Like, what you are talking about right here is what leadership is about. It's saying, listen, I don't need a Bentley. I need a skateboard. We'll get to the Bentley later.
Right.
Or we won't. We'll get to the Toyota and we'll say that's good enough, or we'll get to the bike and that's good enough, or whatever. I think that's why open source and like trial stuff is so popular, or gaining a lot of popularity, because people can throw it, not throw it in their stack like literally, but like put it in your productivity stack or put it in your workflow or whatever to try it out first. Like run 10 transactions through. Oh, I wonder if Stripe is going to be good. Run 10 transactions through. We got our money. Woo! Transactions are still working. How did Stripe do? Not so well. We should still use our other service. Done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a balance, right? It's really hard. The whole MVP, minimal viable product, the whole problem with that whole statement is viable. What truly is viable? Like, if you're trying to build me a car, right, a skateboard's not going to work.
Yeah, you have to ask a ton of questions, and you have to interview the user, so that when they come to you and say, I want a car, you can ask them enough questions to realize what they're actually looking for.
He even brought that up in his book. He talked about Elon Musk and with Tesla, and how the minimal viable product in and around the car was, it still had all the functions that a car has. It had steering wheels, it had the four wheels, it had a braking system. But instead of putting in analog gadgets, the whole display, sensories, everything was managed through software. It was a software-defined infrastructure in the car, which now makes it easily upgradable. So many of the features that the new cars have, the basic framework will be the same. Customers then can upgrade their car.
Cars as code.
Replacing their car. Yeah. So that's a paradigm shift, right? That's disruptive when you think about it that way. But I think the other issue is when it comes to MVP, we want you can't do MVP without accelerated feedback loops. You can't do MVP without risk tolerance.
Yeah, I mean, ideal situation, you're asking your customer to join your team.
Right.
And you'll understand a lot about it. And of course, John Ivey has good points about people don't really understand what they want. Or Steve Jobs, I think, actually said that.
Yeah.
And so you be inclusive. You include diversity as well, because then what you're getting is a lot of different viewpoints, and you can take and leave you can take what you want and leave what you don't.
Yes. Yeah. And so I'm almost done with the ITIL practitioner book, and there was this one chapter on organizational change management. I think it's chapter 6.
Will you send it to me when you're done?
I will. And it's come to it's riddled with notes and things I vehemently disagree with, but there are plenty of stars where I said this is excellent. Just to be fair.
I've seen your tweets.
But I kind of had a sense that it was Karen Ferris who wrote this, because she wrote the white paper on balanced diversity, using formality versus informality and how things have to go through a certain life cycle. And it's really, really a good chapter for any of those who haven't been on the fence about whether they should buy the book or not. If you're on the fence, you buy the book. If you're not even considering it, then don't buy it and just go read Karen's white paper. But one of the things that it talks about is it's great to be innovative, but at some point that level of innovation becomes a commoditization, and our expectations on how things change. And so what I see happening in organizations is the greenfield opportunities can embrace DevOps real quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But
segregation.
For legacy systems, it's a lot harder to incorporate. Now, Gartner calls that bimodal, the system of record versus the system of innovation. But even then, because it is, like you said, it is everything's stacked on top of each other. I think what's going to be truly disruptive is as we understand the true value of containers, because I don't think we do yet. And we see legacy systems now being able to be chunked into smaller and more manageable software-defined infrastructure
services.
Yeah, true technology services and infrastructure and interfaces that can be, more agilely
delivered. Yeah,
delivered and managed. Yeah, that I think is going to transcend us to more of a scalability. I also think it's interesting too that it's going to open up more collaborative opportunities, because what we are seeing now, and I think I see it more in the DevOps than I've ever seen in the ITSM space, is the sharing of practices and the sharing of tools. So I mean, I think of a tool like New Relic. I never hear of New Relic in the ITSM space. I've never heard New Relic at any CIO conferences, but in the DevOps world, I hear it a lot, and it's highly recommended. And that kind of word of mouth best practice is both good for vendors, but also it's good for those who want to actually make a quick decision, get something done, right?
Yes.
So that I think is changing how things are going to be operating. I loved reading, and I'll put this in the show notes too, the interview with the US's first chief data scientist. He seems like a really funny and engaging guy, and the interview was just fantastic. He even said, I sucked at math, and he kind of went on from there. Here's our chief data scientist saying that math really wasn't his thing, but his he says his driver was being curious, curiosity and asking the questions and willing to, buck the system and go against things. And I see that mentality in DevOps, but I don't see that mentality in ITSM. And I think it's going to be our limiting factor. We're as ITSMers not supposed to challenge the process,
Yep. It's cultural difference, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, and you think about it's probably due to age. I mean, not of the members, but age of the sector, whatever you want to call it. ITSM has been around forever. DevOps was coined, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever. It's just more open and transparent and accepting and diverse. And service management, man, if you looked at those conference lineups of speakers, you just know that you're getting one view. You're getting.
It was 2012 that we had John Willis and Gene Kim on our podcast.
Yes.
2012.
Yep. I remember that was good.
Yeah.
He had SRV in the background.
Just thinking about where DevOps was then, and the Phoenix project hadn't come out, and
it was new.
Explosion, right?
Yeah, it really did explode. And I think the reason that it explodes, though, is because it is right. That is the beauty of something that is so open and accepting and not really top down, pushing stuff on its people. It's going to take off.
Yeah,
because
bottom up.
Yeah. You're going to do what's right because it isn't defined, right? And the only thing that is defined is to do the right thing. And so, it of course it makes sense. It's a system of systems.
Yes, system of systems.
And it's built in such a beautiful way that it cannot possibly fail, right? And so it is the future, and DevOps is here to stay because of that. Because if it starts to go away, guess what? It changes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's just such a good thing. It really is.
No, I did tweet today. I think it needs to be called DevProd, not DevOps, because I'm finding very few ops people actually getting it.
DevProd.
Well, if the developer's pushing stuff to production, then what's my job?
Well, and that
enterprise architecture, resiliency, making sure you got firewalls in the right place. I'm thinking about 7,000 things that you're not doing today that you really need to be doing instead of pushing code.
I still think it should be labeled ops. That makes way more sense to me. I mean, it is the operations.
It is the operations, absolutely. It's just the traditional IT ops, which I include myself in this because this is my background, and I've just been converted, enlightened.
Enlightened. No, you want to be relevant, and so you continue to learn.
You try to, like you said, it's about what works. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. And it's like people are arguing the ITIL, DevOps, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, hey, listen, I don't know. But all I can tell you is when I read that Puppet Labs survey result for 2015, and we talked about on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, if I was a change manager today, I'd seriously be thinking about upping my skills or finding a place on Key West.
Yes. Because what's going to happen, if all you're doing today is approving code and pushing code, that is going to go upstream, for sure. There's no question about it. I think what I would study up on is regulations, governance in other areas. Project management is a great place to go because that's kind of where the code pushes are coming from. So there's a lot of opportunity, really.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to tell me we can have self-driving cars, but we can't have someone approve a network switch iOS update?
No, we can't have someone approve that. It should just be automated. Automated. Use there's a Mac company that does that for you. Dang it, I forget when I forget company names. Speaking of Google, though, and self-driving cars, they're planning on building a city. Alphabet City.
They should.
All self-driving cars, all fiber. Everyone uses Google Apps, apparently. You have to have a Plus account. That's a major downside, of course. All the billboards play YouTube ads all the time.
They're all just fail blogs.
Oh man, and I saw another really good video this week about printable magnets. Incredible. I'll put it in the show notes so you can watch it. It's a 10-minute video, but it is worth every second. It'll change
How do you do that? That's amazing.
It
That
is
amazing.
It will change your life.
Before we sign off today, can we just give a shout out to Prince, one of the greatest talents in the music industry? It's sad to hear that. Such a young guy.
It is sad to hear. He lives right over there, actually. Paisley Park is less than 3 miles from my house. It's right over there.
Wow.
So it was really busy. There were tons and tons of cars lined up there yesterday. Obviously, in Minnesota, we don't have that many stars, people that are famous, but Prince just touched the world in a way that it's different than everyone else. Because he refused to be put into a genre, and he loved himself so much that everybody else loved him too. Right? That's true. In a beautiful, beautiful way.
That's true.
It's my opinion. We should give a shout out to Prince.
No, I mean,
sing it for us, Hooper.
Someone who has been as Purple Rain, as someone who has been as popular as he has, right? When did you ever hear Prince getting issues with police, drugs, arrested for drugs, beating a woman, and you think of just the ridiculousness across the entertainment industry that you see. Yeah, you saw him in the press for being flamboyant or for being edgy or being controversial, but he, never of the things that you saw from other characters at the scale that he was at. So, and just a super talented musician.
Very.
So
very talented, always upstanding. He was true to himself. It's just true and moral. I don't know. I think I've been thinking about him a lot actually the last couple of days, of course. And man, what an inspiration. It's just inspirational to see someone be themselves, which is so sad. Yeah. But beautiful to see it, but sad that it's like something shocking. I don't know. Be yourself. Hack business technology. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.